Hello, my beautiful light workers. Thank you for joining me on Soul to Soul today. It's your place to get inspired and empowered to live your best life. And today I'm joined by the lovely Mira Kelley, who is a past life regressionist and an author. Hello, Mira. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello, Layla. It's such a pleasure to be with you.
I'm just so inspired by your story and about past life regression in general, and you're the perfect person to share all of your knowledge and wisdom about what it is and how we can incorporate it into our lives and how we can draw inspiration from it, and then also serve others through that. So if we can start by just you sharing a bit about your story and your journey through how you discovered past life regression and all your wonderful stories. That would be wonderful.
Absolutely, yeah. I really love doing what I do. I help people experience other lifetimes, and it wasn't always the case. In other words, this is not what I always used to do prior to this incarnation. Right, in this lifetime, I used to be a corporate attorney, and past life regression has been with me for a very, very long time, ever since I've been a little girl. But it took me having the benefit of it, experiencing the power of physical and emotional healing for myself in order to fully step into this work. So I learned first about past life regression when I was a teenager. I was 13 years old, and I was born in Bulgaria, and at that time Bulgaria used to be a communist country, and so during the first formative years of my life, there was never a discussion about angels or God or even reincarnation. So I had no idea whether it's possible or not, because it was never really brought up to my awareness. And then, when I was 9 years old, communism fell as a regime in Bulgaria. And as you can imagine, that brought about a whole lot of influx of spiritual, metaphysical information, and as well as religious. So people would have in the same conversation discussions about UFOs and going to church and this and that healer. In other words, there was really no discrimination, I should say, between what was possible and what was not possible, because there was such deprivation for that kind of information. So all of a sudden people were excited and hungry, and it was in this environment, this background environment, that I came across a book on past life regressions. And at that time I was 13 years old, and I was really very intrigued by the book. I was very intrigued by the stories that are shared, the possibilities of people healing lifelong challenges and getting answers through simply experiencing something that they just see in their head. And so I was, as I said to you, very, very interested, very intrigued. So what I did is I created a recording for myself, and I regressed myself by listening to this recording. And I remember thinking, as I was getting ready the recording to play, I was thinking to myself, why am I doing this? I don't have any physical challenges. I don't have any emotional challenges. I have no phobias, none of that. So, but yet I was so curious. I was so intrigued by the possibility of this whole process. And I played the recording, and I had a very powerful experience. And it really impacted me. It really made me see the bigger picture of my soul, of my purpose, of my path. It made me dispel of any fears about death and dying, because that's really the unspoken benefit of past life regression. That is such a tremendous opportunity for people to release one of the biggest fears we have. So that was my initial introduction into past life regression. And as you can imagine, a 13-year-old very quickly returns back to the world of growing up and boys and friends and music. And then, as you can imagine, I went on to high school, I went on to college and law school. So when I was already living in New York City and working as a corporate attorney, I had I had a very debilitating physical condition that developed as a result of a very simple dental procedure. So I just simply needed a filling replaced in my mouth, and out of that, what happened is I developed a full-blown TMJ condition. And for those of your viewers who don't know what that is, it's a condition right here of the jaw. And it's not really structurally anything wrong with the jaw, it's just that the muscles are inflamed, and there is excruciating pain in the jaw and the neck, and it's really very debilitating. So I was struggling with this for a whole year. And you know, when you have even the tiniest pain, it preoccupies you, it really impacts you severely. And imagine this being actually a big pain and always being right there in your face, you know? So what happened is I was one day speaking to my dentist, and he was really at his wit's end. He did not know what to do with me anymore, because he has done all the possible procedures he could think of. He has sent me to physical therapy. That didn't do much of anything for me. So he finally suggested to me that I either learn to live with the pain, or I simply do an operation. And he was really suggesting the operation, right? And the way he described the operation, he told me that they were going to break my jaw and then reattach it back with wires. So that did not sound right at all. And so I walked out of his office really very much in a place of desperation. What do? I cannot choose either. And so it's in that moment of desperation that I remembered the regression that I did as a little girl. And because I didn't know where else to go, I didn't know what else I could possibly do, I decided to do a past life regression. And so that's how I returned back into the world of regression through this experience. And I found a practitioner. And after my session with her, I should say that during the first session, I didn't experience anything. And I like to share this with people so that when they approach regression and it doesn't work for them the very first time, they don't give up on it, you know, and they stay with it. And so during my first session with this lady, I experienced a very brief awareness of myself as a slave, and I had this big metal collar right there around my neck, and there was an imperfection in the way the metal collar was put together that was always hitting my jaw, and it was right where my main pain spot was. And it was that experience that left me with a whole lot of emotions, with a whole lot of questions, you know, a whole lot of just cathartic release of emotions. And so after this brief experience, I simply went home and cried some, you know, and didn't know, and didn't do anything beyond that release of emotions. And the next day I woke up and the pain was gone, and it was really something extraordinary. It was really an extraordinary miracle. And it was this that brought me again into the passion and the excitement for past life regression.
Wow. I just think it's such an incredible story, and just to think that a memory of I guess your past life can really heal in this lifetime. It's truly, the extraordinary is the best way to describe it, right?
Absolutely, I agree with you, and I have seen it with so many people because I do personal work with people. I do workshops, so when no matter the setting, no matter the way people connect with this work, be it through one of my CDs, working with me personally, or in a group setting, in a workshop, it's really an incredible thing to see the transformation of people when they connect with another lifetime, because what happens senses, they get an understanding of their soul path. They get to see the bigger picture of who they are. They get to see how they have been working through the lessons through many lifetimes. Also, people use regression really for anything. They're able to address relationship challenges. They're able to address health issues. They're able to address emotional issues they've been carrying forever. And really, there really isn't an issue that people don't use regression for.
Yeah, for those of our viewers that don't know really what regression is, could you just briefly describe what it is, the process, and then what happens during a regression session, whether with you one-on-one or through one of your CDs? I actually have used the one on the Audible, and I found it wonderful. It's so peaceful and relaxing, and yeah, I highly recommend. I'll leave all the links to all of your work in the description.
The CD that you're talking about is called Healing Through Past Life Regression. I'm so glad you enjoy it.
Yeah, I do.
So regression in itself is a very simple process, very, very much like meditation. In other words, you can very easily compare it to meditation. The only difference is that you go into a state of relaxation with the intent of connecting with other lifetimes, with the intent of exploring the questions that you have. And so as you can imagine, because of this comparison, it's really a very gentle and very simple process.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's very, especially the way you do it with the tone of your voice, and it's very peaceful, and you kind of go into this state of deep relaxation where you feel comfortable and confident enough to explore the inner world.
Absolutely, because you know what happens when I guide people into relaxing their bodies? They know that they're in a place of safety. They know that they're fine. There are no cats or dogs jumping around them, right? The phone is turned off. They know that they will not be bothered for that amount of time. So they're able to tune in. They're able to tune within. They exclude, or I should say, minimize the input from their external senses, and they tune within. And these other lifetimes, they're always available to us. They're part of our makeup. They're our heritage. They're always with us. They always influence us. So it doesn't take a lot of searching, you know, as long as you just tune within and you focus within, the feelings, the emotions, the images, they're all there.
Something that I actually really, really found fascinating and so mind-boggling in one of your interviews that I listened to was the way you describe time, or the concept of time, and the idea of time being only for us to understand in the physical world as a linear process. So if you wouldn't mind, if you could just talk about that, because the way you articulated that was so powerful, that would be great.
Absolutely. Talking about time and the way it affects us here on Earth is one of my favorite topics to talk about, so thank you for bringing it up. In fact, I love it so much that I wrote extensively about it in my book, Beyond Past Lives. And I was introduced to the idea of time by working with my very first client, because while I was still working as an attorney, I was only regressing people here and there. And at first they were my family members, my friends. And then the day came when I actually did a regression with a person I didn't know. And what happened during his session was, you know, one of those extraordinary things that impact you so greatly that make you write a whole book. So I was working with him, and to tell the long story short, he experienced 6 lifetimes, and all of them were overlapping in the same 130-year period. And my shock was absolutely, I was beyond shocked. You know, I was not understanding how could this possibly be happening. And yet he was so detailed with names and places and dates and and experiences, the vividness of the experience, that I couldn't doubt what he was telling me, right, in terms of this being a real experience for him. So after every lifetime, he will pass on, his spirit would leave the body, and he would go on the spirit side where he would meet with his spirit guide, and they will talk about what he learned, what he failed to learn, and then he will say, okay, I'm going to do it again, and hopefully this time I'll do it even better. So he went through all these lifetimes, and all of them were overlapping in the same 130-year period. And it's really amazing to think how in his second lifetime, there's still a version of him waiting to die in 2040 in the state of California in a nursing home. You know, that's just one little example of all these incredible stories. And so when I work with a person, be it in person, be it through the CD or be it through workshops, I will always guide people to connect with the energy of their higher self, so that they can understand the experience and so that they can get guidance on the questions, on the everyday life questions that they have. So I connected him with the energy of his higher self, and he spoke with, he was allowing for his spirit guide to speak through him. And that was one of the most important questions I had to ask, right? I was asking, how could this possibly be happening? Because I have always understood it in my studies of past life regression and in my own personal experiences of regression, that regression is a very linear progression. In other words, we have one soul, and the soul is moving from a lifetime to a lifetime to a lifetime. And so we usually think of this as the perfection of the soul, right? The ascension of a soul. In other words, you set out to learn things to become a better person or a more evolved soul in one lifetime, and you do the best you know how to, and then you try again in the next lifetime. And that's how I've always thought of this process. That's why it was so extraordinary for me. But what I heard from this guide was that time is really a construct that works here for us on earth, that it serves us because it allows us to create, to manifest in progression. In other words, we set out an idea, we use our mental powers, we take action, we focus, we release beliefs that are limiting us, and lo and behold, we get to the end, right? To the end result. While on the spirit side, creation is instantaneous, right? It's you think it, you have it. It's that quick and that easy. And so this construct of time allows us to approach creation and reality experience from a different point of view. And so it really serves us here on earth. It's definitely a valid experience for us. But on the spirit side, there is no such thing. On the spirit side, everything is happening simultaneously. Everything is existing in this now moment, just like every spiritual tradition teaches us, right? And just like quantum physicists tell us the same thing. So for a soul, there's really no experience of time on the spirit side. So for the soul, all these lifetimes are existing presently. And sometimes what happens, a soul wants to learn a lesson. Let's call this the lesson of compassion, right? And so when a soul wants to learn a lesson of compassion, it very well knows that it cannot create just one experience of having a life where everybody's being generous and kind and compassionate and understanding and learn the whole lesson. The soul also knows that you have to be in a place where you're being hurt and have compassion towards those who hurt you, or being in a place of war and create compassion through that, or limitation, or seeing the suffering of others and learning how to assist and yet not try to save, right? In other words, respect their growth and their strength. So the soul knows that it needs all these perspectives. And if you were to think of a wheel, and in the center of this wheel, you place the question of compassion. So every point of view, every spoke of the wheel provides a different view towards towards the center. And each of you is completely unique and completely different. So a soul decides that it's going to create all these different scenarios of learning compassion through different lifetimes, so that it's a whole and complete view of the question, of the issue. So what a soul does is creates pieces of itself to send into those different lifetimes. And sometimes a soul will decide, you know what, the period of 130 years is very productive for me. I'm going to choose that period because the economic condition is right. The political environment is perfect. This city will provide the greatest opportunity for meeting people and working together. Or a soul can also choose to create a very long span of experience so that it learns the lesson of compassion, because it's thinking, you know what, being a caveman is a good lifetime. It will teach me a lot about compassion. And how about choosing a life during the time of the Roman Empire? And then how about during the Industrial Revolution? And then present days? So when during a regression, a person connects with these lifetimes, they see a very neat stacked progression of lives, right? You know, I was having a life during the Industrial Revolution. I didn't learn much. So again, I tried in this other lifetime. And that's how people get to reinforce the understanding of lifetimes being, progressively unfolding as past, present, and future. But it was this experience with John that gave me the understanding that also lifetimes are simultaneous as well. They're unfolding presently because these lifetimes are simultaneous from the point of view of the soul. And that's how this idea was introduced to me. And from there on, once I worked with John, so many other sessions came up where people will have the overlapping experience of lifetimes, and so much of this understanding has been broadened for me.
I just think that's so incredible, and it really changes your perspective and shifts your perspective on the nature of reality. So do you think that the question of free will, I suppose, and predetermined things in terms of our soul's lessons and the growth of the soul, do you think we have free will, or are things already sort of predetermined for the soul, and how much of an impact do our decisions and our choices in this lifetime make an impact for the soul's journey, I suppose?
I really love this question. I believe that free will is really the paramount overarching force in this. I believe that before we go into a lifetime, what happens is we decide on an idea, on a theme that we want to explore. We mentioned compassion earlier, but this also applies to understanding. This also applies to love. This also applies to forgiveness. Really, any theme of it. And so we decided we want to explore a theme, like we were talking about the soul. The soul decides on a general theme, and we create possibilities of opportunities to work with this person or that person, to meet and to be in relationships. But we do it as more of a general, broad strokes, very general ideas of possibilities. Because once we're here on earth, again, the paramount overarching force of free will, because think about this, every choice you make creates an impact. So even though we would love to think that there is the opportunity, opportunity is the wrong word, really. Even though we would love to think that there is a predetermination and that we're going to get there, it's really more of free will, because every choice you make brings you into a different place. For example, I very easily could not have chosen to come to America, right? I very easily could have chosen to stay in Bulgaria. And that in itself created a whole different branching out of possibilities, right? Where am I going to go to school? What job I'm going to get? Who am I going to marry? All of a sudden, it's very much like a decision tree. Every choice brings you to the branching out of other decisions and other possibilities. And here's the incredible thing. I have learned through my work, through past life regression, that every choice actually creates a new reality. And not only does it create a new reality, but every possible choice that you can take on is actually experienced by a part of your soul. It really gets to be so mind-boggling. You know, it's very much like the idea of quantum physics, where you hear these ideas and you're like, how could this possibly be, right? Because I'm aware of only one time track, of only one version of my life, because I know that when I chose to go to a law school, I could have very easily chosen not to go to that law school. In other words, I could have very easily chosen to stay in New York City and get a job and keep on creating life through that. So you can imagine in that moment of divergence, how all of a sudden everything is so different. So pieces of us definitely explore these other parallel realities as well. It's just that it's easier for us to navigate through life and not overwhelm our physicality and our minds by having all these different versions of ourselves, right? And that's why we're only aware of one version.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And it's so interesting. So something that I also always like to ask people's perspectives on is, what do you think is what is a soul? What is a spirit? And how can we connect to that higher self? Is there any specific tools or practices that we can do to connect to that inner higher self that each one of us has?
I believe that the best opportunity we're given in every moment is to actually fully embody and bring our higher self and our soul into every situation. I think that's really why we're searching for the light and opening up to the divine in such powerful ways, right? Because we're looking to embody that grace of the divine in every moment. So I think of the higher self as that part of us that is aware of the themes that we're looking to explore, that is aware of the bigger picture, of the lessons, of the challenges, of the opportunities, how we can go about. And we can very easily allow for that awareness and connection to the higher self by constantly surrendering and by constantly saying, I'm opening up to the divine, I'm opening up, guide me. Because, you know, what we get ourselves into is for our minds. We usually call that part of us the ego, but I prefer to think of it as our minds searching for answers. And of course, when a mind looks to create an answer, it always goes for what is known, what is familiar, what we have done yesterday, what is our experience, what is the experience of everybody around us. And yet there's a sea of possibilities out there that we can reach for and allow in every moment. So when we work from a place, when we operate from a place where we're not connecting with our higher self, with the divine, we are really making life very hard. We struggle, we try, we get ourselves jobs that aren't fulfilling, relationships that are very limiting. We get ourselves in these situations where it's really hard, and we effort and we struggle and we try. But really, if from the get-go we say, I surrender, rather than wait till the very end where we are like, okay, I'm at my wit's end, I'm throwing the towel in, I give up, right? That's usually when we surrender, when we've tried everything the mind can figure out. But instead, from the get-go, if we say, I surrender, and see that moment of surrender not as a powerless thing to do, but actually is the most powerful thing to do. In other words, that new definition, because what happens is when you let go, when you allow for spirit to move through you, you are rising to the level of your higher self. You're allowing for your guides, your angels, your teachers, your higher self, your soul, spirit to move through you and give you the best possible way. And you're just constantly listening. That's all you're doing, right? You're opening up to signs, to words, to signs on billboards, on trucks, on to words in songs, to conversations, to inspiration, to your own intuition, and also to your imagination, because imagination is the greatest way our higher self and the divine connects with us. So that's really when you become most powerful, because you have the unlimited power of source behind you, working through you, right? How could you be powerless when you surrender? So when you start seeing things like that in a new light, you begin realizing that it actually can be very easy. And so one thing that I teach people is to do this exercise. And at first you can do it in journaling, and then you can just start doing it in your mind. So here's what I do. I take out my journal or just a piece of paper, and I start writing. And I write my beloved, because I love it. Just there's something so beautiful about the word beloved, right? So I love thinking about the divine as my beloved. So I write my beloved, and this is the question that I have, right? I just write out the question. And then what I do is I take a breath, I pause, and in my mind, I imagine that I become the divine. I become my higher self. I become my guides. I become the beloved. And so from that place of expanded understanding, and keep in mind, I'm imagining all this, okay? Because imagination, like I said, is such a powerful tool for us to connect with the divine. So I imagine becoming this bigger being that knows all about Mira, that knows all about what she needs and what the path is. And I simply start writing, and I simply start giving Mira advice, talking in third person about Mira, right? And there's something so incredible about that process, because if you just allow it to flow, if you just allow the stream of words without judging, without questioning, I promise you the guidance is there, the soothing comfort is there, support is there, the answers are there. So I do this very often on paper, and I also do this conversation in my mind all the time. And that's really a very beautiful way to connect with the divine and literally bring the energy of your higher self and embody it and live it in every moment.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I also do the same thing. You kind of take on a role of your divine self, and you almost have a conversation, and it really is powerful. And sometimes things come through and you reread it, and you know it didn't come from you. You know it came from a higher source, and it's really a powerful experience. I agree with you as well. I know a lot of people can find this information, I guess, a little bit hard to believe, because it's so intangible and it's so out there. So how do you answer to those people that are more skeptical, that don't believe in this stuff because you can't see it, you can't really grasp it? It's because it's all kind of in your imagination and in your mind. How do you answer to those people?
I was going to say, for me, this is the most real thing there is. Because, I do agree that sometimes it's hard to verify the experiences that people have. Sometimes it's very easy to go and research and find confirmation for all these lifetimes. But really, the most important thing to ask is, not is this real, but is it relevant? Right. Because, to somebody who had suffered from an STD for 25 years, and all of a sudden their symptoms are gone just because they experienced something in their mind, and is it real or not, doesn't even matter. Right. The symptoms are gone, the person is healed. Or if, so for them, I don't think that's a real question. Or, for example, people who are in a relationship, right? Imagine two people in a romantic relationship, and there's that constant arguing, that constant struggle between the two of them. They adore each other, they love each other, but there's something about that moment when they trigger each other and they explode in arguments. And a person who does a regression and gets to understand the essence of the challenge, the essence of the communicational breakdown, and gets to understand how to deal with the issue, and all of a sudden it's gone and complete and over with, and they're back to a place of comfort and connection and being there for each other. Gosh, it's the most beautiful gift they can give each other, right? So I do agree with you that there's that moment of, there's no pill, right? I'm not offering my clients a pill that they can physically understand. Yet, what I'm offering them is the greatest potential for growth, the greatest potential for healing. Truly, sometimes what happens is people not only complete the wholeness within themselves by resolving physical and emotional issues, but sometimes they also take on regression as a spiritual practice. So for some people, it becomes a tool to know the divine, because it's one thing to read about what the energy of God is, and it's a very different thing to experience it. I tell this story about a client who experienced what God feels like and what God is like in my book Beyond Past Lives. And so for some people, they take the extra step of this becoming a way to know the multiverse, to know reality, and to really empower themselves as the creators of their lives. So there's such possibility in past life regression, and even those who are uncertain about it, I want to encourage them to actually look into this, because you believing in it is not the reason why it works. In other words, the possibilities are there.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think the best way is just to simply try it and see what comes up for you and what you experience. That's truly the best teacher, is because you can't really deny what you experience. It's just as real. I've done, like I said, I've done your the healing through past life regression, and some of the things are just, you can't really put it into words. You just have to go through it, and it's really a beautiful, beautiful experience. So how do you think it benefits us beyond, if there is no real agenda, like I want to heal this part or this part, what is, I guess, some of the benefits that we can gain through, and how often would you suggest to practice doing this?
I suggest to people that they use a regression. They either listen to my CD and do regressions or work with me as often as it feels right. Because especially when you work with a recording, you can do it as often as you want to. And the reason why I say that is because, again, that intuition, that instinct within you is the guidance of what is the right thing for you. So I recommend to people and encourage them to reach out to regression every time there is a question. And I do this all the time myself. I listen to the very same CD that we keep on talking about all the time, every time I need guidance and every time I have a question of my own, and the benefits are absolutely extraordinary. As I was mentioning to you earlier, people can use regression for anything. There really isn't a question that they cannot address with. As long as you have a question, this is, you can use regression as the answer.
That's true. Yeah, it's a great way to not only relax and get really at peace with yourself and really ground yourself in the present moment, but also connect to your higher self and your intuition. And I think it's almost like a muscle, the more you do it, you probably it gets easier to disconnect the logical mind and connect to that inner higher self. It's really beautiful. So we're getting to the end of the conversation now, and I like to ask people, because I believe, and I know you're also very much aware of this as well, that there's a shift happening in consciousness overall. I guess the question is twofold. Why now? Why do you think now is the time for us to awaken, to connect to that place of divine power? And also, what is your personal message to anyone out there who wants to do more, who is ready to do the inner work, to awaken and to serve others? What would be your message to the world, I suppose?
I have to tell you why now. I have to tell you my answer will be why not? Why not now, right? In other words, we are in a place where there's a greater energy moving us and carrying us into this awakening for towards our power, towards our consciousness, towards our awareness. So we are in an incredible place of opportunity to jump in and really be carried by that energy. And even if people are not spiritually open, I know that this is an experience for all of us, right? In a way, we are in a place where we're bringing all of our negativity for us to see it through the things we see in TV, through the breakdowns in our personal lives, so that we can really examine and decide, who do we really want to be? How do we want to choose powerfully? What do we want to do and be? And so this is really, I believe that this is an incredible opportunity for us. This time is really an incredible opportunity for us to be supported in ways that it was challenging, say, 100, 200, 500 years ago. And in this lies the greatest empowerment of our souls, right? And that's what I want to offer to people. I want to encourage them to know themselves as the powerful creators that they are. I want to know themselves as the magnificent beings that they are, to turn inside, to turn within, and look for that even greater awareness of their magnificence, of their power, of their ability to create, and also open up to a greater place of love, to a greater place of awareness of their beauty and desirability and worth. Because really, once you're within the joy and fulfillment of your own soul, within your own worth, you become a very different person when you relate with the world. When we are in a place of limitation and lack, in a place of doubting and questioning and judging ourselves, we project that into the world, right? And we get ourselves in challenging, difficult situations. But when we know the magnificence of who we are, when we know our own power, our own luminosity, it really becomes a very different way of being in the world, creating life and experiencing life.
Yeah, you show up differently, right? It's all, we're energetic beings, so the energy that you're projecting is at a very higher frequency, I suppose, and you attract situations and people and opportunities that are at that frequency. So that's wonderful. I could talk with you for hours and hours. This is such, it's just a fascinating conversation. I really want to thank you for taking the time and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. And I highly recommend the audiobook that we've been talking about, not the book, I guess the program or the CD, and your book as well, if people want to learn more about past life regression and what it is and how we can all benefit from that. I will leave all of the information in the description box, and I thank you again for your time, and I wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Layla. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.